Good morning, Jordan, are you? Yeah. Good morning, everybody. This is the meeting of the Culture and Visitor Economy over an Overview and Scrutiny Committee taking place on the 1st of February 2022. Thank you all very much indeed for coming this morning. I'm hoping that this will be our last meeting in the chamber. We normally meet outside various venues and we meet round a table, which is usually much more productive, but bear with me, we're in this situation this morning because of the situation that we're in. I don't think we're expecting a fire alarm this morning, a fire alarm practice. So if there is a fire alarm, it genuinely is a real thing. You need to get out and go down to where you need to be. So have we had any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chairman. We have received apologies from Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew and Councillor Judy Smith, and Councillor Helen Crawford will be substituting for Councillor Judy Smith for this meeting.
Thank you. Would you like to take a roll call of members of present?
Yeah, of course, thank you. So Councillor Judy Stevens.
Present.
Councillor Penny Robbins.
Present.
Councillor Paul Fellows.
Present.
Councillor Nikki Manterfield.
Present.
Councillor Helen Crawford.
Present.
Councillor Jill Thomas. Present. And Councillor Amanda Wheeler. Present. Thank you.
That's lovely. And have we had any comments from members of the public?
No comments from members of the public have been received, Chairman. Thank you.
Right. If there are any disclosures of interest, please let us know. And if something arises during the course of the meeting that you feel you have an interest in, then please do indicate at that point. Thank you. Thanks very much. So if we can look first of all at the action notes from the meeting that was held on Wednesday, the 8th of September. I don't think there's anything on here that doesn't come up elsewhere, unless there's anything anyone would like to comment on. No, all good? Okay, great. So if we can move on to the action notes from the Joint Scrutiny Deepings Leisure Centre Committee meeting, which was held on the 30th of November. If we can just look at the minutes and just make sure that they're an accurate record of what happened at that meeting. Because we have also, obviously at full council last week, looked at the minutes of the meeting that took place on the 14th of December and approved them. And that meeting it was after our meeting, actually. So if that's okay with everybody. Any comments? Anyone wish to move approval of those minutes? Yeah, Councillor Robbins.
I'll approve them.
Is that seconded by anyone? Councillor Manterfield.
I'll second that.
Right, so can we look at some updates then from the previous meeting that don't come up elsewhere? Is there anything that we need to be looking at in terms of the action notes? I think that they all come up elsewhere in the agenda. Anything that wants to be said about number 24, the arts review? Does that need to, would we need to discuss that now? No.
Thank you. There is we are underway with the arts review. We're undergoing the sensitive side of things with this staffing at the moment. So at the right time, we will be coming back to this committee, particularly around what events that we'll be running going forward.
And I know some of that in terms of events and so on going forward does come back up in our welcome back item on the agenda this morning. Good. Okay. We did discuss as well, didn't we, Grantham Museum? I don't think Claire Saunders is here, is she? But I know that there is some developments, isn't there, with that? Can you fill us in on that, John? if I'm right in saying there was some sort of survey going on in terms of the suitability of the basement area to be used for storage of documents, which might come over from Lincoln.
That's correct. So until the basement is fit for purpose, want a better description, what is currently at Lincoln can't come back. So there's some debate over how bad the basement is. I mean, I know SKDC property officials have looked at it, and it's not too damp as a building, but it is to house the artifacts. So there's some discussion there about exactly what would need to be done to make it fit for purpose to house those.
It's good to hear that there's some movement there. Did you say? Yeah, Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Chairman. I think just for members' information, really, more than anything, if members haven't actually, and I doubt many of you have been down in the cellars of the museum, the access is reasonably limited. It has got all of the rolling racking from when it used to be held as a storage facility. Obviously, the County Council archive was obviously emptied because the basement does need retanking, so it has got damp issues in that vicinity. So at the present time, it's just simply not suitable for artifacts or anything to go down into that space, just simply because of the damp issues.
Thanks very much indeed. It's hopeful that we can move forward with Grantham Museum, because it would be a fantastic facility for Grantham, and I think it would provide a focal point for people to use that. So I don't think we want to keep that off the agenda at all. It'd be interesting to see how that progresses. Thank you. Good. Moving on, I think the key performance indicators, next item at item 7, and I think Councillor Cook was going to introduce those this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So obviously the corporate plan is a key document that I know most of us have all taken great notice of, which obviously sets out our objectives as a council until 2023. And alongside that, there is obviously the programme of the key actions for us as council to deliver. Since we adopted the plan in October of 2020, progress against these actions have been reported to various overview and scrutiny committees to enable the robust examination of the council's performance against our targets. So the aim of this report is to set out clearly the achievements and challenges faced by the council up to the mid-year point in 21-22. And obviously a version of this report has been circulated to each of those committees that I've already mentioned. This committee is responsible for 6 actions to be reported at this point during the year. And the review of the corporate plan actions follows the anniversary of the corporate plan in October 21. And obviously will be an annual process where we seek to ensure that the change to the council's priorities and operating conditions are reflected in the actions, along with the lessons learned as well, which is really important from that process. So I think obviously Ken and Ben are here as well to answer some of the technical questions. And I think what I would say is that we welcome feedback on both parts of the report, emphasising that this document is for you as a committee to scrutinise our delivery against the corporate plan. So if there's something that you feel you need more information or you'd like further clarity, then that is also within your remit as a committee to ask for, particularly in terms of what you would like monitored as well. And obviously I'm happy to hand over now to Ken and Ben to take you through the document and then answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Ben.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chairman. As mentioned in there, there's 2 key parts of this report. The first half is about outlining the, I'd say, current, due to committee scheduling, there's the conflict with the important items to discuss around the leisure centre, that this has been delayed slightly. So this covers the first half of the financial year. And part 1 goes through the 6 actions reported there. We've got 3 of those which are considered to be rated green. They are those where they are on track to achieve the objectives or exceeding them in some cases. I think the market's financial performance is quite positive in that part of the report. We do have 2 actions that are rated as amber. I'd like to just make a little comment on each of those. On page 37 of your report pack, there is an action there which is about adopting cultural strategies and getting residents engaged with a new programme of activities. At the time of writing, I think it was the cinemas and the theatres were just reopening at that point, coming out of pandemic restrictions. And so we rated this as amber, saying we know we haven't achieved the initial targets that we set, which were sometime around before the pandemic, but we were content that things were beginning to reopen and people being able to engage with those attractions much more readily at that point. We also, on page 38, similarly had an amber rating on the adoption of the sport and physical activity strategy. I think it's really important to note at this point, at the time, that strategy was undergoing consultation since the initial draft of the report. I believe it was in December. That strategy was actually adopted. So when it comes to the year-end report, that action will be rated as green because we think we have achieved what we set out to do. Lastly, there is one action that we admit is of concern. It's rated red, and these are where they're significantly behind target or we don't have a plan in place that we believe will be able to deliver our objectives. This is similarly to do with engaging residents with cultural activities. However, it was really set back by pandemic restrictions. We weren't able to go out and conduct events in the field. We weren't able to bring people into our facilities. So that one has been flagged as likely undeliverable by the end of the year. I want that one to be kind of held in your mind for the moment because it is very relevant for the part 2 of the report, which covers the review. The review, as Councillor Cook indicated, will be held annually, and it's about gathering the thoughts of the scrutiny committees of our officers and some of the lessons learned as we go through collecting these, identifying where we have information, where things aren't quite matching up with our monitoring and our objectives. There are relatively minor changes throughout the actions that this committee is responsible for. However, there is particularly major change in the actions on, apologies, bear with me while I just double check the page, on page 42 and on page 43 of your pack. There is a proposal that I've used the term remove in the initial documents. I think it's possibly more accurate to say that we're going to merge them. Our recommendation is we tie together some of those actions which refer to the old programme of events and things that we know are no longer deliverable because of things like the restrictions. And instead, we merge them into one action which covers the arts review and delivering the outcomes of that review and the recommendations that have come out of it. So that the new action is on page 46 of your pack. The rest of the changes in there, as I say, are relatively minor. It's just about aligning target periods, reporting periods, and appropriate officers and cabinet members for them. We are open to any feedback you have on that. It's really a document that should be about your ability to monitor the organisation's performance as a scrutiny committee, and we'd really like your steer if there's anything that is in that document that you feel is missing or that you'd like added in.
Thanks very much indeed for that, Ben, and thank you. Now, anyone wish to comment on? Yeah, Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks, Ben. Just a few things that stood out for me. One was, I mean, obviously it's been difficult for us to achieve the objectives. I appreciate that during the pandemic. But sort of removing or merging the ones that you've mentioned, which were sort of quite clearly defined, for example, you know, a minimum of 6 events per year, et cetera, et cetera. What you've changed it to on page 46, it's a sustainably provisioned arts service. It sort of seems a bit woolly and not actually something that can be, you know, what is a sustainably provisioned arts service? Where I'm sitting, it feels like we're taking away and we're not necessarily providing anything. And sorry, just a second point. I know that you mentioned it at the start, Councillor Stevens, the hope that we'll be going back out into the community. It's one of the things that I feel really strongly about if we're trying to improve the art service and work with what we have in the district, that as soon as possible that we can go back out and work with the Stamford Arts Centre and Bourne Corn Exchange and the Grantham as well. So those are my 2 points. Thanks.
Just to clarify that last point, I think the point that I was making was that we, you know, the desire is that we meet out in the open in, in the community to go to see, different venues that we have been doing in the past. I don't think we actually as a committee go and do anything as such. We meet in those places, and we've had reports in the past, for example, at Bourne Town Hall and at the Granary and so on, as to what's going on in those places. It's not that we go in there and actually take on the role of officers in those situations. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just come back on that? On page 8, it's one of our decisions that we agreed was that the committee over the next year reviews the 3 centres, Bourne, Grantham and Stamford, with a view to determining a future operating model. Could we not, I'm confused. If we're reviewing them, does it not make sense that we go out to them and we actually listen and work with them?
I think that's what, it's semantics here. I think what we're doing is we're reviewing how the arts review is put into place. Certainly that means that we need to see how it's working, what's going on, but we're not going in there as a committee to actually affect any of those changes. What we're doing is to see what's going on, and we may well go into those venues, at that time to have our meetings, which is what we were doing before. Slightly different, but yeah, Councillor Fellows.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. To continue, I believe what my colleague was just saying is the report is very professional, but when I read it last night, all I could think of was, it's a lovely tick box. Where's the information? And the information, obviously, and Ben has just given to us on what it relates to. But again, to continue the discussion, where I feel we need to be is the 2 areas that have been merged to come up with what's on page 46, a review of the art service within the district with an ambition to provide improved, efficient and accessible arts. And again, the answer might be is that's where we're going, but that's where we need to be. We know where we are, but what I want to see as a district councillor representing my area is what are we as a cultural committee, what are our officers going to do to engage with our communities, to get forward sustainable programs that are linked into those communities and that those communities have also engaged in. In other words, what I want to see from now on, and that may be the next stage, is a jumping off spot. Where are we going to? We know where we are, and where we are for a whole pile of reasons isn't where we want to be. We have good facilities, we have intelligent people, we have creative people across the whole of South Kesteven. What are we going to do to pull all these together and move us forward? And again, because of the review of the arts, we have lost some creative thought without a shadow of a doubt. And I want to see that come back somewhere and somehow.
Can I ask you to respond to that, Ken?
Yeah. No, thank you, councillors, for that. So just to say, really, sort of the purpose of bringing these reports in. So I'd describe these reports as being a bit like a metal detector, that they're giving you a bit of information that you can then you can dig into a bit in that meeting, but then help to inform the future work programme. So the idea of this is to say these are the things that we think are on track. They're progressing, and these are the things that we've got some concerns about, but they're not meant to be the kind of detailed, in-depth review. So they're meant to spark the committee's future energies and activity, really. So the reports that come through will always be at a relatively high level because we cover basically the whole breadth of the council in them. So I think it's a good debate to have. Actually, we've got a concern about this. Well, how do we move it forward? We can have a short debate in this session, and then you may choose to then bring back a full report going forward. Is the kind of way they're meant to work. In terms of so that I hope that kind of addresses a bit about what you're saying there. So in terms of the piece around the willingness point of the action. So I totally agree that the previous piece had a specific number on the event in. The reality is what we're trying to make this corporate plan is realistic for what the council is actually going to do over the next year. And the focus is around having the arts review, which will then develop a strategy, which will have some targets that will be very measurable and deliverable. measurable and deliverable for you as a committee to look into it. But we can't do that until the point that Nicola's team have completed the arts review and have got a strategy going forward. If that makes sense.
Would you like to comment, Nicola? Thank you for that, Ken.
Thank you. I wanted to give members some comfort on the work programme for this committee, page 72 of the paperwork. There on the 5th of April, there'll be a report agreeing the future phases of the arts review. So you will have an opportunity to be more engaged.
Thanks very much indeed. Yeah, Ken.
So the intention would be, and obviously, as you know, the colleagues will do this, but the intention would be after that session that this action is effectively updated to reflect reflect the outcomes of that as that goes forward. So that's the kind of plan with the corporate plan, and ensuring that it kind of stays relevant, is iterative, but sets out what the council is actually going to do and actually going to focus on to deliver for residents and businesses.
So just to summarise that then, I think what the councillors were saying was that they probably understood that we've now superseded that action point, you know, with looking at the review and enacting the review, making sure that the arts review is working well, but they don't want to lose sight of the aspirations that were initially laid down, as in that key performance indicator, which is now red. They don't want to lose sight of that, but they do understand that for the duration of the review, that is there, but not, not actually. But when we come back in April, we hope to be able to sort of see our way clear to how we're going to deliver going forward. Does that summarise? Yeah, is that good? Ken, thank you.
Yeah, and just it might be helpful, not trying to commit colleagues to do things, but in the report, if the narrative shows why we've moved from from where we started to where we're aiming to get to, I think that'll help the committee have kind of a full view of the journey that the service has been on, if that's helpful.
Thanks very much indeed, Ken. And just thank you very much for coming to this meeting. It will be the last that Ken comes to us in culture visitor economy meeting, although he does tell me he'll be at full council, so we'll miss you, Ken. Is that the key performance indicators? Is that it? Anybody else want to say anything? We all good? Good. Okay, so we'll move on then to item 8, which is to look at a report on the merits of a council-run deeping market. And I think that's for Paul Stokes to deliver. Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, I'm presenting the report on behalf of Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew, who I've worked with in preparing this particular report as a cabinet member. I wasn't intending reading right through the report, but just as the report was produced in order to engender discussion and receive feedback from members in terms of the options available at deeping. I've laid out 4 potential options. I think that covers all the options available really. And also with those options, I've tried to put as accurate a cost as I can to actually stage in that. I think it's very important that the committee see the costs of actually establishing the market and the impact on the existing Wednesday market. So I'll leave it with you to come back to me with any questions.
Thanks very much indeed, Paul. Are there any councillors wish to comment on the report? Councillor Manterfield.
I've kind of got a question. Is this the right time to ask? Or?
Yes.
Just looking at it, really, is there a problem with the way that the market's being run currently? Is that why we need to kind of be looking at bringing it into in-house?
That's not really what's planned. With your dispensation, I'll explain what currently happens, unless you'd like to do that, Paul.
So the current market takes place on a Wednesday. It's privately run. It's led by the fruit and vegetable proprietor who engenders what traders they can. The issue on the Wednesday at the moment is that it's averaged between 6 and 8 traders. They don't provide stalls, so some of them operate from a big van like the butcher or when they come. The fruit and veg do provide their own pitches, but they don't have stores. So that impacts on 1 or 2 people attending. There are different views on the success of that. I can only say that personally I visited twice recently, and there were substantial queues at the fruit and veg stall. The other stalls were being used, and the fruit and veg trader does actually take deliveries out and about within the community as well, which I think is a benefit from the 2 years through COVID, which also happens to an extent in Bourne. But that takes place. There is a big space. There is opportunity to develop. We have actually provided traders to the market previously, but unfortunately, the impact of them having their own pitches does tend to limit it a little bit.
Actually, this is, sorry to interrupt, but I just see Ben just left. But one of the major key point indicating successes has been with the markets. You've actually achieved one of our key performance indicators, haven't you, on the markets? How is that? Can you just enlighten us to how that's happened? I know that harks back to the previous point, but that would be interesting to know, Paul.
Yeah, on the other markets. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
I think basically it's been different at each market. Stamford, as we know, fills itself and has always just done better than break even. We constantly get traders coming and wanting to be there. So what has happened there is, whereas the market on a Saturday was just almost a small market that followed, because some of the traders, particularly from the beginning of the COVID scenario, that has just developed on a Saturday almost to be a medium-sized market on its own. We get something like 16 to 18 traders, and that has become a constant, whereas previously it was probably 6, 8, 9. So we built up Stamford Market, and that has obviously helped on a Saturday, helped the income figures. At Grantham, we've done some work in terms of the resource and the labour element, worked closely with the supervisor to make sure we've got the right appropriate thing, also in terms of waste disposal and things like that. So they're one-offs to a certain extent. We've also had a substantial piece of work that we've done with the valuation office and managed to get some reduction on our market store, which was impacting on the markets. We're still working with Buckminster on an ongoing basis. They do give us some discount. And at Bourne, it has proved successful in its own right. I think it's benefited again through COVID. We work closely with the specific traders we've got. There is also scope to add a few more at Bourne on a Saturday. But one of the things we've had to accept is that basically, not quite so much at Stamford, but at the other towns, the mood of shopping has been that, I mean, for example, if you go to Grantham at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, it's packed. At 11 o'clock, several of the traders are sold out. Whereas we used to say, you've got to be there till 4 o'clock, which was the time of knockoff. And we've had to accept that some of those traders have run out of stock at that time. So we tried to work with the traders closely and built up a good rapport over the COVID period that has extended now. And I think it's brought a new wave of people to the market. And obviously the success of that has also led to people who are more crafty type traders appearing on the market as well. So, and we've also allowed at Stamford the farmers market traders to come on a regular basis rather than say you can only come every fortnight.
It's a real, I've said it before, but it was a real feather in your cap to keep it all going, I think, during COVID. And I do think the way, looking at, the indicators that you see in the press and elsewhere, certainly people's shopping habits are changing, aren't they? And I think the sort of buy local thing is really, quite ingrained now. So and certainly, the idea of buying fresh from the market, I think is only going to gain. traction. And of course, I don't think what we should forget is the rising population, particularly in Stamford. You've got more and more houses being built, and I'm aware of some of the people that are moving into Stamford, and obviously the market is a big attraction there. So yeah, so that was brilliant, well done. But going back to the agenda item, is there anything else that anyone wants to say about the options? What do you I have some views, but yeah, Councillor Thomas.
No, is that right? All right, sorry. I've looked at all the options, and I've lived in Market Deeping all my life, and the market that's currently in the car park, I don't know if it's Rainbow Car Park, has diminished, and also having the co-op disappearing, people are not walking through there. But for option 4, to have 3 or 4 specialist markets, I think would be a real boost to the Deepings. I can see here that the cost is £900 to get the erecting and transporting all the stalls. Is that something that will go against having it as option 4?
I think we've put on, if I can compare it to what we currently do at Wyndham Park, we've looked to, we started off with 1/2 markets to try and build up a scenario there. I've obviously worked on 12 traders because I didn't want to sort of say, oh, we could easily get 50 or something like that. And I think it's all about establishing a foothold. Obviously, ideally, I would have thought that we don't want to put things on, given the current financial climate, that costs money. But at the same time, we have been successful in Wyndham Park in building up traders, and it's just a case of making sure that those markets, at Wyndham, it hasn't just been a summer market. We've established them around things like May Day and Christmas and Halloween, that type of thing. Obviously, it is a bit weather dependent. They've worked very well, and they do actually finish up in the plus factor. There are several villages currently looking to hire our stalls. It depends then who, we obviously put the ones on in Wyndham, but other villages are actually putting on their own markets by hiring our stalls. I think the thing is, I've had to work on £40 per event because there are other areas where they might put a bigger figure against that hiring the stall. But I think if we go too far, then you might put off the person who's, I don't know, making donuts or whatever they may be doing.
So just to be clear on that, you charge £40 a stall at Wyndham Park or everywhere?
Sorry, I've just put £40 there, thinking that wouldn't be an unreasonable amount for the day in Deeping. So the stalls at Wyndham are 30, but obviously if we link that with Grantham at Christmas as well, you can think. But I thought if we go too low, establishing the one in Deeping, then you would be on a more of a red factor than black.
Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, obviously, the report mentioned about the market that was launched in Deeping, which wasn't a success for a plethora of reasons. And I think, partly we need to accept that, shopping habits have certainly changed over the last couple of decades and continue to do so. And I think we all shop online. I think actually the idea, and I know it's been used by a few people now, is actually if you have sort of 4 or 5 specialist markets throughout the year, make sure they're properly advertised, really do a good push in the local community and build up a sort of an event around them. And I think that's the base to then grow anything in the future. And it certainly then encourages and supports some of our local traders in terms of those that potentially, you want these traders to start out in terms of a market, but then eventually transition them into small shop units or something else to further grow the local economy in that place. So for me, I think if you started with 4 or 5 a year of, really specialist markets, and then actually you could build on that gradually if the demand was there from the local population and the interest was there as well. But that's us as a district promoting it as much as we can through our various mechanisms through social media and everything, but also the local community taking part of that ownership as well in wanting to make it a success as well. And I know you and I have discussed this just slightly earlier today about certain events that have taken place in the Deepings that bring in a huge number of visitors, which are absolutely vital, and then they spend locally in that economy. They potentially stay in the local hotels, and it's really about driving that economy and getting some vibrancy back into the town centre as such.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Fellows.
I can't resist it. I agree with Councillor Cook. Please write that in the records, put it in the minutes. I obviously, because of all the work I've done at Bourne, I actually feel that the specialist type market centred around an event is potentially a way that we really do need to go. Also, I think you could look at, and again, Paul will know about this, whether or not it's viable or not. You don't use the model of putting up stalls for them. All you do is sell a space. So therefore you lose all the labour costs involved in putting up the stalls. People will come with vans or with whatever want they do to sell their stuff. But by focusing on events and merging it in with the specialist market, I really think it's something way we should explore, and it's certainly a way we should move into the future.
Thank you. Can I just ask Paul, is that viable to have people come along and put up there in terms of the space that we're looking at in Market Deeping, which is the car parking area? Would that be possible, do you think?
Yes, I mean it is possible to look at the potential for pitches or the like. When I say a pitch, that's where they bring their own gazebo. I think the negative aspect, of course, of that is it can look a bit higgledy-piggledy, and I know that we're quite keen for when we put the stalls up for them to look, uniform and really nice. And I think the presentation does look nice when all the covers are the same colour, but there's certainly an option to sell it as pitches where people bring their own. That would obviously limit some people because they haven't got that capability, but it would seem that there are people who are quite keen to bring their own pitches, and in some cases vans, such as food proprietors and things like that.
Certainly when we have the raft race in Deeping, I don't think they have stalls. They bring all sorts of stuff, and we get buses that are double-decker buses that are also bars. There's that lovely thing that's a retro suite sort of stall, which is really pretty. And then you get people, like us who perhaps just bring a gazebo that the mouth, so we do get the variety of different things. So yeah, but that is, Councillor Weaver.
I was just going to support what other people have said, and just to add what happens in Stamford. Thank you, Paul. We do have a very successful market, and the farmers market now weekly, which is great. But in addition to that, Stamford Town Council also has a Friday morning market, which is unpitched, and people pay a minimal amount. I think it might only be £5. And it's for crafters, and they turn up with their own facilities and set up themselves. And that works really successful. So I don't know whether it's something to be done in conjunction perhaps with the parish and town council as well, whether they'd be interested.
Whereabouts is that one?
It's on Red Line Square. So it's every Friday. Is it every Friday or Saturday? Friday, I think. Friday in Red Line Square. And they bring their own tables.
I think it's Saturday, actually. I've seen been. I just was trying to figure out. I think it might be.
No, it's actually on Friday. There's also another market in Red Line Square on Saturday.
Is that?
Yeah, it is Friday. The ones in Red Line Square on a Saturday is an extension of ours.
Councillor Thomas.
I was just going to talk about the raft race, and the street is full, isn't it, with all sorts of different gazebos and, as you say, double-decker buses. So.
Councillor Crawford.
I think when you have a specialised event like that, sometimes the higgledy-piggledy of it makes it. Whereas perhaps when we have our market stalls, it is nice to have them uniformed. But I think on a specialist event like your raft race, having a double-decker bus and then a van or whatever. I think that's what makes it more individual as an event. Whereas when we have the market stalls, in our markets, to have them all regimental and all the same makes more sense to me. Thank you. But I support what Councillor Cook said about having the events and Paul Fellows as well. Thank you.
Councillor Robbins.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say I support also what Councillor Cook said with regards to sporadic 6 stalls throughout the year, and then year on year you can build on that. But I just wanted to ask you, Paul, with the financial implications, it says the business case put forward at the time projected of income was 15k. The actual income received was 5k due to lower than projected trade numbers. So do we know why there was lower? Did we find out why there was lower projected trade numbers? And also with regards to the following 1920, a further cost of 3k. 2021 prior to the council operating market ceasing. When did that cease? Was that a full year? How was that determined?
I think when we launched the Deeping Market, we gave the first 2 weeks free to try and encourage, and obviously in those early weeks a lot of people came along, which naturally they would. And then they went on to a plan of increasing the payment as they go. And I think traders are traders. And so 1 or 2 dropped off. I think there's no doubt that the weather was a significant impact at Deeping as well. There's no doubt that it was an unlucky period. Even in the summer that particular year, there was a lot of rain, wind. I don't think people quite appreciate that particular space on the market area unless you're from Deeping. When the wind blows, it gusts right up the street there, and it really did present some challenges. And so there wasn't a lot of unfortunate luck in that as well. I think that traders took the view, several traders took the view, well, we're not making enough at this point in time, and stayed where they were, because obviously traders had taken a bit of a gamble to come from another market or send somebody else on their behalf. The further carryover was just the way the finance was running over, basically.
Councillor Fellows.
As long as I'm allowed to come back, I'm not sure of the rules. I think we all know that the way people shop has totally and utterly changed. We know that, and has changed again because of the pandemic, and will change again. But for me, in going back to my original point in supporting Councillor Cook, was the if you have a market on a Saturday or a Wednesday, a number of people will come out because they know it's there. End of conversation. They know what they want. They will go there. If you have a market around an event like Halloween or Midsummer or Christmas, the community will come out because it's the event. And I think we have to be realistic about the way people shop, the way they want to purchase things, and to buy into that as well. So again, it's supporting my original support, but I think we shouldn't hoodwink ourselves about the way people shop, how the way they've changed shopping in the last 2 years, but how they will almost certainly go back to shopping in the future. We just have to be realistic.
So can I sort of press you on that? So what exactly, how do you think can you just be quite clear about how you think things have changed? I know more people are shopping online now because it's so easy.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, and it is totally simplistic, but Stamford Market will always be successful because it's Stamford and it's got a history, and people will actually go to Stamford to go to the market. Bourne Market, using these 2 examples, will draw a certain number of people every Thursday because they know they're there. The pandemic has encouraged them to go because it was easy to buy fresh fruit, it was easy to buy bread, and the bread man comes from wherever, and I don't know, and that is then fitted in by various other stores. The Saturday market, we're lucky if we get 2 or 3 stores, and it will bumble on like that until those traders cannot earn a living on it anymore. And again, even if you go back historically, why have we got markets? Because traders from the farms and for whatever they were doing knew that people go into town on a certain time and they could make a profit from what they're selling. That has changed forever. We now know every single one of us We'll not go to the market if we know we can get it across the road at Tesco's at half the price. We will not go to the market, and especially with the economic conditions that are coming on, if we can go to Lidl and Aldi and get it at half the price of Tesco's. That is the reality of life. And all of us, there was a time when I might have gone into Bourne to Wands before it became Witherspoons, if it ever does, and you might want something electrical. These days I go on the internet and it'll be delivered the next day. That's why Wands isn't there anymore. We have to be realistic. Certain market stalls and certain markets will always be successful. Stamford will, Bourne will, to a point. But if we want to develop them, and I think we have to develop them as community affairs rather than profit making. Are the council going to make profit on market? I doubt it. Do we need to? If we're sensible, no. Can we provide a service and make a bit of profit out of using market at specialist times, encouraging people to come from far and need with the proviso that a market you have at Christmas, one year might have 10 stalls, the next year it might be 20, and those 20 will be different from the person who came the year before. But all you do is provide that opportunity. And if you give the community a reason to go into town, they will access that market. But they're not just going to turn up on an odd Saturday or Sunday or Thursday, on the off chance that there might be a stall selling them something they might potentially want.
Nicola. Sorry, Nicola.
I was just wondering whether, as a committee, you could ask Paul to, in a polite way, go away from this meeting and assess the financial implications, and then come back with a business case and costings.
Are you thinking in terms of a market that supports special events? Yeah.
Yeah, because effectively at the moment there is no budget. So then there needs to be, you're discussing something that actually doesn't have a budget allocated to it at the moment. So there needs to be an additional piece of work that happens.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you. Councillor Robbins.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on what Councillor Fellows said. With the Wednesday market in Market Deeping, you said the veg man was packed out. Did you say? So there is obviously still a need, because otherwise they wouldn't be selling out, would they? So I do agree that, you know, a market every week would be a bit different, but I think people's habits are changing, but they are still shopping and they are still going. Like in Stamford, you know, I know that's always going to be a good one, but once you get your loyal customers that keep coming back, then it will take the customers into the other shops in Deeping, and then people see more of Deeping than they would necessarily see ordinarily. So they will go, you know, they are still, I know they are changing, but people still do like markets to go to, as we've proved from the Wednesday market.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford.
I think the other thing you need to think about is the age group that goes to the markets. And they're not necessarily the youngsters, the middle-aged, because they're out at work or working from home. It is possibly the retired that go to the markets. And at one point, they're going to fall off the cliff. So, you know, we've got to make sure we're replacing them. But, you know, it is, you go to a market, it is generally the older generation.
As I'm quickly reaching my retirement age. Well, so I think that, you know, if everyone else has spoken, so yeah, everyone. Last Saturday, a friend of mine put on a coffee morning in the local church because she wanted to raise some funds for the church, which has been really depleted during, I don't think people that's another one of those impacts that you kind of don't even think about, but congregation hasn't been going to church, therefore there haven't been collections, and, you know, you may or may not be religious, you may not be, you know, but the thing is that people see the church as part of the community. And she put on a coffee morning, cake and coffee, and she raised £550. It didn't get publicised particularly well, but everyone in Deeping St James, a lot of people in Deeping St James went to that event and really enjoyed it. And there were a couple of stands there, stalls, people selling things, and she raised £550, as I said. So I mention that because I think it provided a stepping stone from people who have been locked down because of the last 2 years. I don't think we can avoid that in this discussion, because I think 2 years of our lives have been changed irrevocably. And I think we need to look at ways in which, as a community of councillors, we can look at ways in which we can encourage people to go back into society and come back out of their houses safely and start interacting with each other again. Because the reality is that over the last 2 years, a lot of clubs and societies and activities that used to happen regularly have ceased to happen. And some of those haven't kicked back into being. So there is a gap, I think, in people's lives where they really don't have that thing to do. So I see a market not just as a way of generating interest in the town. I'm talking specifically about market deeping, but about, actually encouraging people to go back into society and to start interacting with one another again. I think there are lots of levels that markets actually work on. There are lots of different kind of markets. We've obviously got the Wednesday market, which is much more of a commodity sort of style of market. And then we've got the sort of markets that go, hand in hand with the raft race and the carnival and so on, which are probably a different kind of market where they're more sort of perhaps more fun items that people might buy. So it's different sorts of things that we're probably talking about. Personally, I think that the market in market deeping on a Saturday wouldn't conflict at all with what goes on a Wednesday, because, as you mentioned, people that are around on Wednesday afternoons are not necessarily the people that would go out on Saturday, and vice versa. So I don't think that conflict actually is there, although I do see that might be a perception in the minds of people on the Wednesday market, that all of a sudden the Saturday market would come along and knock them off the top spot. I don't honestly think that is that would happen. But yes, I do think we did have the market that was every week in market deeping that summer. And yes, you're quite right, Paul. It was absolutely horrific weather all through the summer, and actually very often at the weekend. So it did sort of put the mockers on that market, which was a great shame, because it did start off, with real vigor and real interest, and people did come to it. And I think it did ticked a lot of the boxes that a market is supposed to do. But I don't feel personally that I want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and jettison that totally. I will come back, but John was asking to speak.
I just think it's your point in particular about we can't ignore the last 2 years, and from the conversations we're having, people aren't just wanting to get back out, but people are wanting to change what they do. We are getting more inquiries now for people who want to start their own business than we had pre-pandemic. People have had 2 years to consider what they want to do with their lives. Now, a lot more people are wanting to start their own business and do their own thing. A lot of that, regardless of what we read and what we hear, a lot of those are people who want to get into retail. They still believe that there is a buy local market out there. Bucking the trend, particularly in Grantham, is the fact that we have very few empty units now. For people to go into, and rental rates and everything else is always an issue. So actually there's a real opportunity here to improve the offer, diversify the offer. There's nothing wrong with the offer, it sounds, diversify the offer of our markets by working with people that want to take that first step in the whole business startup arena. And then, as Councillor Cook says, hopefully then grow into space as it becomes available across the town. So I think absolutely that's an angle we should look at from an income generation point of view, and everything. He's actively encouraging those people who are thinking about it to support them to turn what they want to do into reality.
Yes, thanks very much. I feel that as well. And I think, when we look at the next item on the agenda, which is the Welcome Back Fund, obviously that was very much, part of government and then taken through to district council level, a desire to put investment into local communities again, and to get people sort of out there engaging and, transacting in a way that perhaps is more traditional. And I think we all know that there is one of these sort of givens over the last couple of years is a deterioration in, people's mental health. And the way that they're interacting with one another. I think there's all sorts of evidence to substantiate that, which makes me think that's another level really that we need to be looking at. But I do think that, that we need to sort of try and work out ways that the district council can realistically help people. There isn't a bottomless pit of money, obviously, as I can see Councillor Stokes at the back of the room. There isn't a bottomless pit of money, but there is a desire, I think, for everybody to make things better for our population. I think that is a given. I think each and every one of us are here today because we want to make things better, and we've got to look at ways that we can realistically make things better. And so I applaud the report in that sense, and the option 4 is one that I think may well be something that we could look at making work. And I certainly think working closely with the local community, again, that is something that does provide then a fail-safe, because if we, for example, we're very lucky in Deeping, we've carried, just as we've carried on with the market, one of the things we also carried on with during the pandemic was the Santa sleigh, which all of a sudden has developed, dare I say it, wings, because it raised nearly £10,000 both years of the pandemic, and people have absolutely loved it. And that has taken on a kind of new life because it was something that people could really participate in and enjoy. So that, I think, is something that was something else that we did, but it meant that we worked with local groups. And so the Deeping Rotary Club of the Deepings and the Deeping Lions and the Round Table have all kept going during the pandemic. The Santa Sleigh is the obvious thing that they've done, but they've done other things as well. And I think that they're groups of people that we could certainly look at working with in order to deliver a specialist market on I think we'd need to make sure that we knew when it was going to be, and make sure everybody knew about it. There's obviously work to be done in terms of communications of that, but I think there is certainly a possibility. So yes, can we take that forward then as a proposition, that we ask Paul to, in the nicest possible way, go away from this meeting and look at the financial implications of setting up a specialist market to take place 4 or 5 times a year in the calendar. And I'd be happy to discuss that with you as when that would be a possibility, and then take that out perhaps back to this committee. And then if you're happy with that, then to take that back to the community. How does that sound as a proposition? Yeah.
Yeah, and just for absolute clarity, that would also be bringing back a business case and the costings as well.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah. So as a proposition from the chair, so have any seconders?
Second, thank you.
Shall we have a vote on that then? Are we happy to let Paul go away to put a business case and look at the financial implications of that? We all are. Okay, lovely. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you. And thank you, Paul. Okay, so moving on then to item 9 on the agenda, which is the Welcome Back Fund update and the next steps. And I think Councillor Cook is going to introduce that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So obviously in November last year, as many of you will know, we received around £253,000 as part of the government's Welcome Back Fund to support and promote our local high streets, which were obviously heavily impacted by COVID-19. Unfortunately, it was only a few weeks later, obviously, we had the Omicron variant sweeping across the country, so it certainly changed it slightly. But the fund is to be used for events and promotional campaigns to attract residents and visitors alike, to explore what our district has to offer as we return from lockdowns and restrictions, which obviously now being lifted yet again. The fund can also be used to make upgrades, repairs or improvements to public spaces in order to make our communal areas the best they can be when visitors return to them. I think it's just important to note that the restrictions, let's be honest, the government are very prescriptive in terms of how this money is used. So it is not carte blanche for us to spend the 253,000 as we would like. We have to submit exactly what we would like to the government, and then they have to approve that against their criteria for what we spend it on. So our Director of Growth and Culture, Mrs. McCoy-Brown, has been working extremely hard during this period with others, looking at ways in which to allocate funds and create projects ahead of the spending deadline of the 31st of March. There were a variety of events and promotional banners in the festive phase of the project, and I know many of you will have seen them around the market towns, as well as the street entertainment as well in the build-up to Christmas. And looking ahead, the fund is also going to be used to host a variety of events aimed at bringing our communities back together, including youth festivals in Bourne and Grantham, an arts festival in Stamford, a fun day in the Deepings, and a folk festival in Grantham. And each of these events are open to residents from all corners of the district, and they're not just for that specific area. And hopefully they'll be extremely helpful for local businesses and traders in terms of footfall. We are also embarking on a maintenance campaign, including repairing and replacing waste bins, trees, street furniture across the district, as well as tidying up a deep clean of all of our public spaces. And I think it's really important that, we need to have that pride in the place. So it might sound minute that, we're looking to replace some waste bins, but actually in terms of the street scene and the look and the feel, it will actually make it a much more attractive place. And I'm sure many of us, and one of my pet hates is when trees are removed from town centres and they leave the stump, and then there's never a plan to replace the tree. So I'm pleased that wherever I see a stump in the town centre, we'll start to see new trees that are appropriate for that location being replanted as well. And I know one of my personal projects, I'd love to see more trees in our town centres, particularly Grantham as well, which is sometimes quite a concrete jungle. But work is also underway in looking at a district-wide shopping app and a town trail to help people explore everything our district has to offer. And hopefully we can update you soon in terms of the progress on the specific app and how that also works with visitors, with shop owners, but also how it also integrates with events, not just run by us, but by others as well. So it really is a community app and could be a real game changer. And obviously I'm looking forward and very excited to bring that further information back soon. So I hope today we can all commend the work done by our officers. And also potentially, if you can suggest additional ideas for maximising these funds prior to the spending deadline next month. So I'm happy to obviously take any questions with Nicola.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Are there any questions someone would like to ask that one?
With the Welcome Back Fund, and I know I've been asking for many moons about this would be a good time to perhaps replace the market covers, because I know some are a bit tatty, as it were. Would this be something that the Welcome Back Fund would spend on? Thank you.
Thank you. Paul.
Sorry, I can confirm that covers have been ordered for Bourne. The Grantham covers had been updated previously via a capital sum, but the ones that you've been talking about in Bourne, we have placed the order for under the Welcome Back Fund.
Can I just say thank you very much? I'm so pleased to hear that. But I'm also really pleased that the Welcome Back funds are being spent on events that will bring trade into the towns. But I'm also really happy that it is going to be spent on things that will be there for many years to come, like bins and benches and planters, to spruce up the towns, to make them look better, because there's nothing worse than having a tatty old bin sat on the high street that everybody drives past. It does bring the areas down. So I'm really pleased that the money is going to be spent in those ways. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm really pleased as well that the money is going into tidying everything up and polishing everything, as it were. But can you tell me, with the Welcome Back Fund money that's been distributed or spent, how is the performance or the success being monitored with what we're doing?
Sorry, Nicola, yeah.
Thank you. So as part of the agreement that we have with government, we have to monitor activity. So it'll be things like footfall into the town centres and kind of surveying of how people feel about the locations as well. So that is integral to part of the grant funding.
Thank you.
Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you. Yeah, I welcome lots of these initiatives. It's great you're developing a town app. That's good. Trees, yeah, plant loads of trees, wonderful. Town trails, great, very exciting. Love walking around the town. Just a few things. I see that you've got on page 59 the table of events. You've got youth festivals, which sound great. There's one in Bourne and one in Grantham. There are quite a lot of young people in Stamford. I'm just wondering why Stamford isn't having a youth festival, whether there was any reason for that. Because you've got Stamford Mid-Lent Fair, which has been running for hundreds of years. So it doesn't feel like something specially new as a welcome back. So I'm just wondering if there's anything else that's going to be added on for Stamford.
Thank you. Nicola?
Thank you. There's an events team that are working with the town councils and where relevant parish councils. So we'll take that away and double check. But just for clarity, what we were also saying with the mid-length fair is that, yeah, we're not saying it's new. We'll be enhancing some of the provision for that.
Thank you. Councillor Manterfield.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back to the trails, this is really interesting for me. We work hand in hand with any private companies? Because I do know that we've done there's one out there that does, it's called Treasure Trails. And we've recently done the Grantham one, and we've got the Stamford one lined up. And it's a 2-hour little treasure trail that you print off and off you go. And we, as a family, love doing the Grantham one. So we've even got Newark lined up, which I know is out of area, but we've downloaded quite a few, and I just wondered if we could kind of promote or work hand in hand with that, because it's all kind of already kind of set up.
John, thank you.
Yeah, I have to take that one because it's something that Claire's been looking at. So the trails are approved as part of the scheme. They're not cast in stone exactly how we bring them forward. So if we want to look at that, it's absolutely fine. I mean, I like the sound of that because at the moment we're looking at perhaps more technology-based, app-based trails. There's things that are already in existence that we could look to support. They're part of the scheme, so we can bring those into the scheme. So we'll pick that up separately if that's okay.
Councillor Manterfield, yeah.
Sorry, just to come back. It's kind of, I think the programme looks really, really good. And I mean, there are things kind of that Grantham misses out on as well, and just kind of follow back on. But I mean, we're a family that travel, we often go in pre-COVID times. We went to the Georgian Festival, and we will go out of area if there's a good festival that we're aware of. I think the thing we need to kind of take forward is we need to publicise, we need to get the schools involved. And I think sometimes we don't take that opportunity to get the colleges and the schools just to be aware. I mean, we're bombarded as a parent from my school with all kind of half-term activities and stuff, but it was me that put on the one that was run locally in Harlexton for kids' free craft session on the last half term, and so many of the school went, and it was just so lovely to hear, or we're planning to go. And I just think sometimes, we've got great opportunities there to engage the youth and the schools if we can just get ahead of the time. Sometimes things come out so late notice for us that, as a family, many families, busy lives, that we need to kind of think, I must put out my diary. So it is just really kind of advertising that gets me a little bit, because there's a few things on here that, has intrigued my interest as a resident that I will be kind of uptaking. And I just think it's advertising and getting it out there that we kind of miss the trick.
Thank you for that. Can I use this opportunity as well to promote the Deepings Literary Festival? In terms of, we are running a short story competition, actually, which doesn't have any geographical barriers at all, but it has 3 age groups, 5 to 8, 8 to 15, and adults. So there's no excuse for anyone not to put pen to paper and enter our short story competition. So I'll tell you more about that later, but yeah. I was going to ask you, the treasure trails thing I have seen. Do you pay for it? How does it work? Can you explain?
Well, we're a bit cheeky. We got an O2 offer for the first one. So we kind of paid 99p for the first one. So, and then we have purchased, it is £9.99. But for us, for a day out, I mean, we then have a pub lunch. I mean, even in Grantham, we stayed out, and we went to areas in town that I've lived in for over 30 years that we never even knew, like scriptures on walls. My husband is a Grantham man. He has lived nowhere else. And even he was bamboozled about, I have never seen this before. And it just made for a really nice, it was a couple of hours. It got my daughter moving a body, and we did make a day of it, even in our local area. And as I say, I'm very naughty. I've downloaded the Newark one and the Stamford one. I sat there ready for the weather to get better, but we just amble around at our own pace, and it is just so lovely to see, and it's just something different. So yes, you do have to pay, but we like to print it because then my daughter can write it and write the clues down. So I'm not sure if you can do it as you're walking round. I do think we downloaded it offline and kind of took a pen and paper and off we went. But yeah, no, just thought if we could kind of engage with things that are already out there within the district, that'd be just great.
Thanks very much for that. That's good. Thank you. Is anybody else that would like to contribute to the Welcome Back Fund debate? Anything? Yeah, Nicola.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm just wondering whether we could introduce committee members to Jade Hope, who is the new Visitor Economy Officer and actually done an absolutely sterling job on the Grantham Festival. So I was just wondering whether we could give Jade a little bit of airtime to talk through the process that she's going through.
Thanks very much indeed. We were wondering who you were actually, so welcome. I think I've seen your activity on Instagram, possibly. Is that you, maybe? I don't know. But anyway.
Yes, that's me. Hi.
Welcome. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for having me. Yeah, so I'm Jade Hope John and I'm the new Tourism and Visitor Economy Officer. And so I've been promoting the Welcome Back Folk Festival on predominantly social media, but I was also on BBC Radio Lincolnshire yesterday. And yes, the social media campaign's going really well. And we've also got a website page on the SKDC webpage. And I actually, if you want to see, I've got the poster and some beer mats with me that I'm actually going out into town after this to hand out to local businesses if you'd like to see them. Just get them out of my bag. So here's the poster here. And it's got a lineup of all the bands, and there's a QR code that takes you to the website and also the social media pages which you can follow. So you're welcome to have a look at those. And then something that I'm particularly proud of, I've actually got one at home, are our beer mats, which we're handing out to all the pubs that are involved. So basically, we'll have the music on the main stage in the marketplace in Grantham, and that finishes at about 7:30. And then what we've done is we've supported local businesses and venues in town to then host live music into the evening and through the night. And so lots of the pubs are really keen to have the beer mats, so that's what I'm doing today as well. But they're there if you wanted to have a look at them and even take one home. You're welcome to. But yeah, so it's going really well, and I'm just happy to be part of the team. So thanks for having me.
No, thank you very much. And that's
Sorry, we've also got lots of entertainment going on throughout the day as well. So the Bourne Borders Morris Dancing team, I hope you've probably heard of them before. They're really active within their local community. They're coming to Grantham for the entire day. They're going to be dancing around town and getting members of the public involved and giving lessons. And then we've also got a caricaturist called John, and he's going to be, drawing images of the public, and they get to keep those and take them away, which is lovely. And then we've also got circus entertainment performance going on throughout the day as well in Grantham. So yeah, if you've got any questions, I can answer them.
Thank you very much. It sounds great, actually. I have seen the promotion for that, but yeah, I'll have a word with you about that after. Jade. Yeah, Amanda.
It's not really a question, but just something interesting to note that the 19th of March is also the World Anti-Racism Day. So something you might want to flag up with your performers, make sure you've got some diverse performers at the festival.
Thanks very much. Good, great. Thank you very much indeed for your work, Jade, and we look forward to you reporting back on what else you're doing going forward. So great, thank you. Thanks, Nicola. So now looking at our work programme going forward, that's on pages 71 to 75 of the pack. So I think we'll be bringing back Paul, looking at the Council Run Deeping Market, we'll be bringing back an update to the next meeting on that. That's in April. Can you remind me what the date in April is for our meeting? The 5th of April. Thank you. Obviously, there'll be an update on the Welcome Back at that point as well, because you'll have concluded the work then, won't you? Is that? Sorry, Amanda, Councillor Wheeler, yeah. Sorry.
I'm not sure if it's relevant for this group, and I'm not really a big monarchist, but it is the Jubilee, and I just wondered if anything to do with the Jubilee comes under culture and visitor economy and should be discussed in our programme.
Yeah, certainly there is a big programme. What's the name of the guy? Bruno Peak, who is the pageant master, and I think that information has gone out about the Jubilee, the Platinum Jubilee from him. I know it's been taken on board. We've got a beacon in Deeping St James, so there was a beacon lighting on the 2nd of June, I believe, at 9:15, and we've engaged in Deeping St James, we've engaged Penniless, the folk band, to play, and we'll be encouraging people to come along to the lighting of the beacon. And every time we light the beacon, it's always dodgy how we do it. It never works. So it's always guaranteed to be entertaining. So we obviously encourage as many people as possible. We should get a good turnout to that. There is also something to do with a pudding. The National Farmers Union are making some sort of pudding. We heard this that was going to be there. So I don't know I know that individual towns are possibly doing things. Councillor Crawford. Sorry, and Paul Fellows, Councillor. Sorry, Paul first and then, sorry.
Yep, I'm probably going to say what Councillor Crawford was. It is possibly that we do need just to broadcast across the whole region. The whole of South K will be buzzing. Bourne will be rocking for the whole weekend. The normal Bourne Festival will be taking place. Bourne Town Council is organising events from Thursday through till Sunday night. We're encouraging every aspect of the community, every area of the community to get involved. Elsie Park has got a whole series of events happening over the whole weekend. It's our aim in Bourne, literally, to have every street having a party, things happening in the town that they can all access. And that's just, and in many ways, it's the first time I'd probably go, that's our community. And I know very well the communities in Grantham, Stamford, in the Deepings will do the same. And hopefully the whole of SKDC will be absolutely buzzing for the whole of the weekend. What we can do to publicise it, or how we want to do that, is probably a conversation certainly worth having. But again, it is always the same, isn't it? By taking the particular of what's happening in Bourne, I know that in Bourne on any one day over that weekend, there will be a whole myriad of things happening, artistic, cultural, social. And I've got a feeling, obviously, of what you're saying, the same will be the case for the whole of the area. So perhaps if there could be some sort of publication that drew those together, we can't advertise everything. I understand that, but it would be a great time for the whole of SKDC to come together and say, look what's happening over the whole of SKDC. Any one of our towns is doing so much. And again, wouldn't it be a great big tick if we could say that every single member of our community was involved in one way or another, be putting up a bit of bunting, having a street party, attending one of the officially organised events that happen. But again, sorry, that's my Bourne advert for the week, amongst all the others I've made. But I know we're doing a lot in Bourne.
Thanks very much. And Councillor Crawford, then Councillor Wheeler, and then Councillor Cook.
Just like to confirm what I was going to say. Councillor Fellows has said, but there is from government a whole raft of things that they would like you to do something on each day. But yeah, getting us all together and like you said, if we could get SK today to advertise what's going on in blocks, if that was timed right, that we could have it all going out just before, a couple of weeks before the Queen's Jubilee, that listed what's going on in Deepings, Bourne, Grantham, Stamford. That would be fantastic. And then the follow-up one could be the pictures of what's gone on. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Crawford. Councillor Wheeler.
Great. So is it something that we should put on the work programme for April so that we can discuss what we're all doing in our towns and how to coordinate it all across the district?
Yeah, that certainly could be. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think at the present time, as a district council, obviously, I think we're leaving it mainly due to just the take-up has been huge across the individual towns and villages. I know the village that I live in, they've already got plans in train, the next door village has. And, I think it's, for me, the view of the district is we should act as an enabler. We shouldn't have a massively, we don't want to be this massive power coming in and telling local communities what they should be doing. So at the present time, we've not been asked for any individual support in terms of the events, because I think it's already picking up traction. And I've heard about the plans for Bourne and other areas. So I think for me, how we can support is obviously through the communications. And I think the points that have been raised actually it's probably worth us actually probably doing a special Jubilee edition of the SK today, and actually really just promote all of the activities across the whole district. And then quite rightly in the next edition, have photographs from across the district celebrating in that success. So we can certainly get that in train. That's quite an easy thing to do. And obviously we can get our communications team to work with all the town and parish councils to make sure that we can promote all these really good events as much as possible. On a personal level, I'd love to see all the towns decorated up with bunting across them like they have been in years gone by. But at the present time, I think it's more about supporting the communities and doing what they want to do.
So the answer is yes, we will put it on the work plan, and we will try and get a special edition of SK Today out there. Good. Is there anything else anyone would like to say about the work plan? It's all sort of self-explanatory on there. So I think at the next meeting as well, we'll be bringing back the consultation as well into the leisure centre, which is going ahead at the moment. So that will be something that this committee will have a look at later on. Okay, so anybody else want to say anything about the work programme? Anything else needs to go on there? We're all good with it? Okay, fine, that's great, thank you. Right, well, I think that is probably it for today then, unless anyone has got anything else that they need to bring now to us. No? Councillor Wheeler.
Just what I said earlier, thank you, Madam Chairman, about moving the meeting to the different venues. Is that something, presumably COVID permitting, that we could do from April for the next meeting?
Yes, certainly. I think that's what we're looking at. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Well, thank you very much indeed for coming this morning and for everyone's input. That was great. And we've got some good actions to take away in terms of the deeping market, in terms of the Jubilee, and a big thanks for all that you're doing with the Welcome Back Fund. And I think the Grantham Folk Festival sounds lovely. So thanks very much for your work, and welcome to the committee and to South Kesteven. And you know, Ken, you know, sadly his last, I know it's going to be a wrench for him, but I'd like to thank him for all the work he's done. So,
thank you very much, Chair.
We'll see you all on the 5th of April, destination to be decided.
Or at the Deepings Literary Festival, Judy, don't forget.